Good evening, folks, and welcome to the live stream. Hope you're all very well this evening. Hope you had a nice weekend. So we were hoping just to be talking about Donald Trump's parade or lack of a parade during his during his birthday celebrations, 79 years young. But unfortunately, something else happened. Of course, there was a war in the Middle East, because the Middle East isn't already on fire enough. So it seems, well, why not a bit more fire added to the flames? So obviously, we're going to jump into that. Donald Trump has obviously weighed in again. So let's jump into that. And we're also going to talk about what's happening with the grooming gangs and also a UBI, which is something that I've been talking about before. So we'll talk a little bit about that as well tonight. So let's first of all go to this story from Sky News.
Now, Donald Trump has been on Truth Social, his social media site again, and he's been talking about the supreme leader of Iran. He says, "We know exactly where the so-called supreme leader is hiding. He is an easy target, but is safe there. We're not going to take him out. Kill, ! In brackets, at least not for now. But we don't want missiles shot at civilians or American soldiers. Our patience is wearing thin. Thank you for your attention."
Okay, before we continue, what is it with Donald Trump and the English language? Like the so-called supreme leader. So he has so-called and supreme leader. Okay. And then take him out, kill. Okay. People already know what take him out means, but anyway, continue.
Attention to this matter, that from Donald Trump on his social media site in the last few minutes. Let's just see if we can go back to Mark Stone, who we were just talking to in Washington. Well, Mark, I don't know whether you've seen this. I'm sure you have, from Donald Trump. Yeah. It's quite something. He's an easy target, but is safe.
Brad, thanks so much for that super chat. Great to see you on the stream tonight. Brad says, going to war is like a mobile phone contract. Easy to start, impossible to stop, and gets very expensive when you're abroad. Very good. Yes. That's perfect. I don't know if you made it up yourself. If you did, kudos. That's wonderful. It's perfect. A perfect analogy. Thanks for that.
There, we're not going to take him out.
Yeah, this was Donald Trump's words just 4 minutes ago. So he is in there somewhere conducting world affairs via social media.
This is something I've often talked about, how in the past, when we thought about the future, what would the future be like? Well, maybe a computer could be running everything, or the president would be sending messages directly to citizens or something like that. I never thought we'd see a day where the president of the United States is basically going to war with another country on social media, using social media, not delivering a speech, not addressing Congress. No, sending messages on social media saying, yeah, we're going to go to war with another country. It's insane, but let's continue.
As is his style. We know exactly where the supreme leader is hiding. I suppose, of course they do. But this goes to the heart of the question of regime change and whether or not America is going to get involved in this. I think it is pretty clear from the statements that we've heard from Benjamin Netanyahu, the Israeli Prime Minister.
Something really concerning about all of this is the sort of momentum that builds up to it. So it starts out as, look, it's an impossible scenario, or it's extremely remote, and then it becomes somewhat normal for people to think about regime change. Remember with the war in Iraq, there was a lot more of a build up to it. Back in 2001 or before 2000, the 11th of September attacks, the idea of invading Iraq was for the birds. Then, of course, it became much more clear that the neocons around George W. Bush wanted to go into Iraq, and they needed an excuse. They wanted to go in for a long time, but they needed an excuse. And then, of course, it was the weapons of mass destruction, or it was the excuse. They were, ready to be fired. And we're seeing something very similar here, but it's happening much faster. I remember when it came to the hi, Max Graham sent me. Thank you very much for being here once again, Sarah Davies. Great to see you on. I remember the build up to the war in Iraq in 2003, it was a constant push by different politicians and by people in the media about the weapons of mass destruction. And now it's all happening in a frigging weekend, basically.
That the ultimate aim of all of this is a collapse of the regime, either by taking out the supreme leader or putting so much pressure on him and those around him that he capitulates. We just don't know.
Because we've been down this road before, and I'm not just talking about Iraq, I'm talking about Syria. What's happened recently in Syria? Assad abandoned the country. And that was another thing that happened really, really quickly. There was probably a build-up, of course, that we weren't seeing in the media. But when it happened over a few days. And it's possible, and I've mentioned this already, I think the Iranian regime is very isolated at the moment. They're firing whatever missiles they can at Israel. They seem to have reduced the numbers of waves they've sent over. So this probably means that they're running out of missiles, but also running out of the more powerful ones, because unless they're holding them back for some massive barrage, but at that stage, it seems to be that Israel are basically controlling the skies. So there's nothing really they can do. If they send out a truck with a launcher on it, it's going to be destroyed. And there have already been images put out by the IDF of them destroying such trucks. So it's I think the regime in Iran is getting close to the end, because if they're not able to defend their people, the people will rise up. If they're not able to protect their leadership, well, then it can be destroyed and replaced pretty quickly. Now, who's going to replace the Ayatollah? That's the problem.
Quite how this will unfold, but carrying on from what I was describing earlier on about this sort of strategic ambiguity that Donald Trump seems to be deploying, this sort of adds to that. 1 minute he's saying one thing, the next minute the next. This is clearly a message to the Supreme Leader, who is absolutely keeping an eye on Truth Social, as we all are, that he is in their sights, and that I guess this is the sort of, this is diplomatic maximum pressure Trump style, and it's extreme. And I'm pretty clear that actually the leaders at the G7 in Canada, they too don't quite know what direction Donald Trump will take on this. But what is in...
if the G7 don't know what he's doing, how the heck are we supposed to know? This is, if Starmer and Macron and others don't know what Donald Trump is actually planning, I don't think even Donald Trump himself knows what he's going to do, because he seems to say one thing one day and the opposite the next day. The same with the tariffs. So somebody said that Donald Trump acts on the advice of the last person he spoke to. So somebody probably told him, no, don't take out the Ayatollah. And then somebody else told him the day after, yeah, you should. And now he's like, yeah, we're going to come after you. But I'm really concerned about another tweet or message that Trump put out before that, which was telling the people of Tehran to evacuate. Evacuate to where? We're talking about almost 10 million people being told to leave the city. But to go where? Where would be safe? And when is Donald Trump planning to attack Tehran? And in what way is he planning to attack Tehran? So you're telling people you need to leave, but many people obviously can't leave because they have nowhere to go to. Or, what about tens of thousands of people who are in hospital at the moment, or children or old people who can't just get in a car and leave? What about them? There's no consideration for civilians here. Donald Trump is very good at talking big about, I care about ordinary people. But he's issuing a threat that we don't even know whether it's real or not. This is not like him standing in front of a lecture and saying, we're going to engage in a military conflict with Iran now. This is just him posting stuff on frigging social media.
interesting is that his subordinates in the White House seem to be preparing the American people, the base of his support here in America, many of whom will be deeply, deeply skeptical and against any American involvement overseas, preparing them with a form of words and sort of moulding the narrative to make it clear that if he does decide to go for it in Iran, there is reason and logic in his mind behind it.
I don't buy into this idea that the MAGA will turn on Trump if he goes to war, because we're talking about people who have no principles whatsoever. These are people who voted for a convicted felon, a sex pest. So these people are not the most moral of individuals. So if Donald Trump says, yeah, we're going to war, I think a lot of the MAGA will be like, well, yeah, if Donald says it's a good idea, then I'll go along with it. There are, of course, people who will abandon Trump over this because they actually do believe that war is a waste of money, or it's undermining American influence. So there are some people within the MAGA movement who will probably abandon Trump if he goes to war. But I'm fully behind the idea that the vast majority of MAGA will do whatever Donald Trump says. If Donald Trump says today war is bad, they will say war is bad. If he says war is good tomorrow, they will say war is good. These people don't have functioning brains. They're in a cult. Whatever the cult leader says is gospel. That's how it works in a cult. And Donald Trump is a cult. The cult of Donald Trump. The cult of MAGA. I almost said something else there. Brad, thank you so much again for that super chat. When Trump took questions on Air Force One, I peered through the door. He looked like he'd shout, "Do you mind? I'm trying to shag someone back here." It's true. He's like, "Hey, do you mind? I'm trying to." Was it his daughter? I don't know. They're more critical of the crayon flavors. Thanks, Brad. And Killer, you're right. A girl stood up in the USA Congress and said she's seen Iraqi soldiers throwing babies from Kuwaiti baby incubators onto the floor. She was the daughter of the Kuwaiti US ambassador. Was never in Kuwait. I like to prefer the orange one as Scrotus. Scrotus is genius. It is indeed. Is it just me or is it laggy? I can't tell if it's laggy, unfortunately. The internet is a little bit strange today. Maybe it's because of Donald Trump going to war. Okay, let's move on. Staying a little bit with this, with this story. Donald Trump was in Canada yesterday for the G7, and well, it didn't go very well.
All Democrat-run cities, and they think they're going to use them to vote. It's not going to happen.
Thank you. If you don't mind, I'm going to exercise my role, if you will, as G7 chair, since we have a few more minutes with the president and his team, and then we actually have to start the meeting to address some of these big issues. So
thank you, media. Let's go.
It's like Donald Trump wants to turn the G7 into a sideshow, into a show about Donald Trump, and obviously Mark Carney's like, no, we actually have to talk about important things, not about your pet hates. So, it's great that there's an adult in the room, but unfortunately when it comes to Donald Trump, the adult in the room is not sufficient. He actually got really upset about all of this and just took his ball and went home. He was supposed to meet with, so there's the G7 and then there are all the other leaders who come along, like Zelensky and others, countries that are not members of the G7. But all these other leaders came to speak to Trump, and Trump was already gone. It's like, where's Donald? He's gone home. He's gone to play golf back in Mar-a-Lago or wherever the hell he is. Trump didn't stay around and meet the other world leaders. He's nothing but contempt for people. Like the reason why he's there, and of course he brought up the thing of, well, where is Putin? I was hoping to see Putin. No, it's not the G8, it's the G7. Oh, why isn't Putin here? I really like Vladimir. Why isn't Vladimir here? We should have Vladimir back. He didn't do anything wrong. Oh my goodness. He said, I'm tired of this game. I know. Look, let me just show you the image there. You know, it's a bit difficult to see. Let me see if I can zoom it a little bit. He looks like somebody who's really enjoying himself, doesn't he? It's like, I don't want to be here anymore. He's like the child who's like, you know, at the end of they want to go home, or they want to do something else, and they're sitting around waiting for their parents to finish talking. It's really like the parents talking, and Donald Trump is obviously the child who wants to go home or wants to go to the ice cream shop. That's it, to the ice cream shop. He said Putin wants peace on the phone. He's letting out a fart in that picture, or should I say Trump? So this meeting had nothing to do with the G spot. Melania told to attend, so I can learn where it is. Satan's comb over. I love the name. Gone to play crazy golf. Why doesn't he just resign as president and just spend the rest of his life playing golf? It would be much better for American society and world peace, I think. Anyway, I want to move on. So this next story, so we'll leave Trump for a bit, but we might come back to him. We'll see that. So obviously a copy and paste from the United States is DOGE. And I don't know if you guys saw this video this morning, but there was a Reform UK councillor who wants to inject DOGE into one of his councils, or a council in the Northeast, I think it is. And well, DOGE is not about saving money. It's about promoting Nigel Farage.
Nonsense. Is this just a gimmick?
Not at all. And Sir Steve, I assume you have nothing to hide. So would you welcome the DOGE unit coming to Barnsley Council and proving us right that there is no waste to be cut?
I don't need a DOGE unit. I've got the external auditors who said to us this year, Barnsley Council is a well-run council. It manages its finances well, and it provides value for money to its residents. So we've been double council of the year. We've been told by the government we're the highest performing metropolitan authority in the country. I don't need some third-rate DOGE unit sticking its toe where it's not needed.
How often have you increased council tax in the last 5 years?
We've increased it every year because the reality is pressure. Nonsense.
Is this just a gimmick?
Okay, the reality is pressure. So I think what you're going to see with these DOGE is that they're going to come in, they're probably going to try and get into councils. Now, there's a whole lot of issues related to DOGE that they will not be able to do. For example, there'll be conflicts with personal information. Like, the councils are supposed to protect people's information. Now, is DOGE going to be able to access that information? Will they have permission to access this information? Like, will councillors be able to hand over all private information to DOGE? Because that's in part what Farage wants to do. He wants to be able to access people's information. So, of course, he wants to be able to find out, okay, what people are in the area, who can we campaign to, what people are open to the reform idea. Having the names and addresses of people in the council. I don't know if it's possible to access this information anyway, but DOGE will be able to access probably personal information about people. And if people are in social care, of course, they're going to be able to see some of that personal information as well. This information should be protected. Okay, the council has a responsibility to protect people's privacy. If DOGE get in there, then they're going to be able to access that information. So I think it's two things when it comes to DOGE. One is looking for something, ergonomic chairs or flags, so that they can justify the reason that they're there and say, oh, look, we're here to look for savings. Oh, look, we found some savings. So this can be presented to Nigel Farage and he can say, see, it was a good idea. We've saved money. The Labour Council is throwing money away. The SNP Council is throwing money away. Plaid is throwing money away. The Conservatives are throwing money away. You need the Reform UK party in there with DOGE to save taxpayers' money or to save council payers' money. That's one aspect of it. But the other, of course, has to be accessing information. Information is gold. Information is gold at the moment. Remnants of Cambridge Analytica. Well said, yes. So they know that if they're able to access, okay, who's living in this council? How much can these people be pushed, nudged, in order to vote for Reform UK? What message can we send out? This information is worth gold if you're pushing a particular narrative, or if you want to get into power. You don't have to worry anymore about just campaigning, but you can use the information that the council have to help you campaign better. That's what it's about. So I think part of it is to help Nigel Farage sell the idea of reform or actually saving council payers and taxpayers' money. And the other, of course, is accessing information that should not be handed over to a political party. I feel sorry for Melania. Imagine going to bed with a taco titted orange 79-year-old who had Epstein as their best friend. Yes. 3 years to crush Reform, Labour, but get rid of Starmer. He hasn't got the guts to do it. Starmer, I don't see Starmer lasting very long. He's not popular. He's not popular with the public. He's not He's actually, it's ironic, he's popular. He's more popular with the public than Kemi Badenoch or Nigel Farage. That's, this is the thing about the media. The media bubble is, Starmer is extremely unpopular, but he's very unpopular online. But I think he will become a drag on the party, so they will eventually get rid of him, like other parties have done in the past. But it's more difficult to get rid of a Labour leader than it is a Conservative. So the Conservatives have the 1922 committee, and then they could just replace, as we saw over the last number of years. Hello from Cyprus. It's a relief to hear your Etrud take on both the Middle East nightmare ensuing and the ever-growing global geopolitical dynamic. Thank you very much, Christine, and hope you're well over there in Cyprus. And stay safe, because it's a dangerous part of the world at the moment. Spotted a video title earlier suggesting the Baron isn't Donald's son. The Baron isn't Donald's son. No. They don't look very much alike, do they? A sort of Princess Diana and what was the guy's name? James Hewitt, was it? Affair. Macron and Meloni had a joke about him at the G6, at the G7. Yes. I despise Meloni. I despise her politics, but some of the clips of her with Trump and or where Trump is around are quite funny. Can anyone join the Discord server? You have to become a member to join the Discord server, but we will look at maybe giving out some free memberships in the future. Brent, great to see you on Discord. Labour backbenchers will have the daggers out for Starmer, especially when Labour got 2/3 of the seats with 1/3 of the vote. Yeah, that's a very interesting point about how the Labour's majority is extremely wide, but very, very narrow, very, very shallow. So there are a lot of MPs, but a lot of those MPs are sitting on very small majorities, which makes them very frightened of the likes of Farage and the Green Party. The media focus too much on Nigel Farage and not on the Green Party, and the Green Party are taking a lot of votes away from Labour and the Liberal Democrats as well, more than Reform are. But the focus is always Reform. What if we had PR? Would Labour get less seats? Labour would probably end up getting more seats. But the other parties would get more as well. So maybe not Labour would not have as many seats as they have now, but their support will be stronger. They would have a much stronger support base. What they have now is obviously people voted for Labour to get the Tories out of the last election. It wasn't so much a vote for Labour, it was a vote against the Tories. But under PR, you'd actually be voting for the party that you like, and you wouldn't have to vote tactically. So the support base would be much stronger. Mr. E, thank you so much for that super chat. Invisible elbow politics and economic strategies. Thanks for that. Yes. Bring back Caroline Lucas. Yeah, she was really good, but maybe Zach will be the next leader. We'll have to wait and see. That's, I think, in the end of August is the vote. So again, we're about half. No, we'll move on to our next topic in a moment. So I want to take a short comedy moment, and we'll be back in just a jiffy with more serious stuff. So I hope you enjoy this, and hopefully there isn't too much of a lag, because that's not good.
Hey, how you doing? Pierce Brosnan, reading for the role of Conrad Harrigan, Bond, James Bond.
Thanks for coming in, Pierce.
Sure.
Very simple. You're the head of a crime family. You're saying, I'm Conrad Harrigan, I'm a family man. If you cross me, you better pray.
You better pray, okay.
Yeah.
And Conrad Harrigan, what accent do you want for this?
Oh, he's the head of an Irish crime family, so just your accent, just be you.
An Irish accent?
Yeah, in your own
Conrad
time.
Harrigan, okay.
In your own time.
Conrad Harrigan, I'm a family man. Cross me, okay. Here we go. Ah, for Jesus' sake, me name's Ethel being Conrad Harrigan, and if you cross me feckin' family, I'll feckin' kill you, so I will. Ah, be gotta be Jesus. Oh! How's that? Was it good?
You got the part.
Hey, how you doing?
It's true. We all talk like that. Okay, moving on. What is it with Labour trying to copy Reform UK? So I'm going to show you a clip in a moment where a Labour MP called Mike Tapp, if you didn't know, you would imagine he's from the Conservatives or he's from Reform UK, because he's pushing this. We need to leave the European Convention on Human Rights line. Have a look at this.
We're not a nation to be walked over, and some judgments of the ECHR are abusing it. Article 3 and Article 8 are being misinterpreted, and that needs sorting. We're firm, but we are fair. But if we can't deport foreign paedophiles, something's going wrong. We're not a nation. Okay,
it's a very short clip, but this guy has been putting out a lot of information like this, a lot of videos like this, where he's like talking to the camera, a bit like Robert Jenerick. And I really don't understand. Does he actually believe these things, or is it it needs a reform? Does he really believe these things, or is it like, oh, here's an opportunity for me to hold on to my seat if I turn to the right? Turn the sound on. Is the sound off? What about the Good Friday Agreement? Maybe Anthony, your sound is off. Yeah, what about the Good Friday Agreement? There's no mention of the Good Friday Agreement. Of course, so this whole thing about we need to leave the European Convention on Human Rights, or we need to modify it in some way. I think it's really for the birds. I don't even know if it would be possible to reform it, with all the different members working together. That would take a long time as well. Of course, what the anti-immigration people want is we just leave it. But there's no mention of what happens to the Good Friday Agreement. Can we deport the Sweaty Falcons veteran then? Which one is that? Brad. Oh, okay. Now I know. Maybe. Yes, because of his shenanigans. I don't know where you deport him to. Maybe to the Falklands, but I don't know if they would take him. What place in the world should Prince Andrew, not Andrew, yeah, it is Andrew, be sent to? Fascist bullshit. Sammy? Yes. Crazy people want to annoy the Irish. The sad thing is people will believe it. Yes, they will, unfortunately. So I just wanted to cover that quickly, because there are a few Labour MPs who are pushing right-wing policies, and they don't seem to understand the consequences of them. So let's move on. So, of course, what's happening this week is with the grooming gangs, and I keep saying this: the Conservatives. Where were the Conservatives when they were in power? What did they do? Why didn't they do something about the findings of the J report? Why didn't they implement those findings? They decided not to. They sat on their hands. They didn't even bring up the grooming gangs when they were in. Many of these MPs never brought them up, so they didn't really care about them. But now suddenly, because Labour are in power, they're trying to turn it into a political football, which is it's disgraceful. They don't care about the victims. They never did. They will hold press conferences with the victim, and then as soon as all of this is over, they won't even return their phone calls. I can guarantee it. Kemi Badenoch is doing a rounds with, I care so much about the victims of these grooming gangs. Then why didn't she do something when she was in power? She was the business secretary. Why didn't she use her position within the cabinet to demand something be done if she truly cared about it? Prince Andrew can become a teacher at Sexley School in Burton, Somerset. What? 46 EU countries signed up to the ECHR. It would be disastrous if we ever did leave, because if we go abroad, we'd have no obligation to do anything. Yes, well said. Anyway, let's hear what Jess Phillips had to say.
You mentioned the Prime Minister. You will remember that he described the calls back in January for a national inquiry as people jumping on a bandwagon of the far right. When you reflect on that, was that wise?
Look, I think that what the Prime Minister was saying was, this was in the wake of sort of Elon Musk furore, was that the Conservative politicians, Kemi Badenoch, the Shadow Home Secretary Chris Philp, that he was saying they were jumping on the bandwagon that of Elon Musk talking about on Twitter. I think it was actually Liz Truss. She gets forgotten in this story. Liz Truss, who started it, and then Elon Musk carried it on. Is that he was like, where have you been? You've just been in government. You were the policing minister and the children's minister. Where have you been? And frankly,
but was that a knee-jerk reaction simply because they?
Victoria is better than this. Victoria's was this a knee-jerk reaction? Is the problem here Keir Starmer calling these people far right? Why are you making it about Keir Starmer and these people? These people do not deserve your attention. You know who deserves your attention? The victims. The victims should be the centre here. Not Nigel Farage, not Kemi Badenoch, not Chris Philp, not Keir Starmer. The politicians should not be at the centre of this. Unless they were engaged in some sort of activity, or unless they were not doing their job. But this whole thing about, what about the far right? He's insulting people like Nigel Farage and Elon Musk, calling them far right or jumping on a far right bandwagon. They were jumping on a far right bandwagon because they didn't care about the victims. They kept saying, we care about the victim, but in reality they didn't. They never brought these things up before. They never said, what about all victims? Do we want to protect all victims? Do we want to see the J report findings implemented? No, they didn't say anything about that. It was, why were these people not demanding that the findings of the previous inquiry be implemented? Because they didn't give a shit. They saw an opportunity. It was about bringing down Keir Starmer's government. That's what it was about. They didn't give a shit about the victims. They never did, and they never will. And it's really depressing to see victims sit next to Kemi Badenoch when she didn't give a shit about these victims about a year ago. Why didn't she bring it up when she was an MP in the government? Why didn't she bring it up in the cabinet meetings if she truly cared about this? She's using these people, using the victims. The Tories are extremely cynical. Reform UK are even turned cynicism up to 11. Worse than the Conservatives. The Conservatives, looking at them over the last 20 years, they're extremely cynical. They will use different groups against each other. They will demonise the poorest in society. Look at what they did to people on benefits. Look at what they did to people during austerity. The nasty party, exactly. And now they're presenting themselves as the caring party. Kemi Badenoch truly cares about the victims. No, she doesn't. She's pretending to. How is it? Is it only I can see this? Like, I'm not a frigging journalist. I don't sit down with these people all the time. But even I can see that Kemi Badenoch is using these people. Nigel Farage is using these people. Reform UK don't care about them. Like when it comes to Keir Starmer, I don't know what he actually believes, because he doesn't seem to believe in anything. Like what does Keir Starmer actually, like, I would assume he would be on the side of human rights, but he's demonstrated to be just an empty suit. Like, did he cease being a person when he became a politician? Like, I'm not carrying any water for anyone here. Because at least what the Prime Minister seems to be doing is, okay, what we need to do is we need to implement these measures. Okay, there is pressure on us to do something for the victims. But the other side is just cynicism, and cynicism plus. They don't care. They're using people. Like, why is it so difficult for people to understand that? The Conservatives have never given a crap about people who are not multimillionaires and billionaires. If you're not a multimillionaire and billionaire, we don't give a shit about you. Look at their record. They've been doing it for 20 odd years. You have to go back to maybe the 1980s, or maybe that's not a good example, before that, to find, and I'm not saying every Conservative MP is a piece of crap. I'm talking about the mentality within the party. The party for the rich. We care about rich people. We believe that rich people drive growth. We think business people are the salt of the earth. They're the same party who started the toxic environment, created this toxic environment to get rid of foreigners. We hate you unless you're a rich foreigner or a Russian foreigner, a Russian millionaire. Then we welcome you with open arms. But if you're a poor person, or if you're crossing the channel in a small boat, we don't even consider you human. Why is this so difficult for people to understand? Why? I'm not blaming the victims here for reaching out to Kemi Badenoch. I'm blaming Kemi Badenoch. I'm blaming the people who are cheering on Kemi Badenoch and the Conservatives. Because I can guarantee you this, and I will say it here, as soon as this is over, give it a week or two, Kemi Badenoch will be not returning these people's phone calls. As soon as this issue has passed, and it will pass, not for the victims, not for the institutions, but the political issue, as soon as that is over, as soon as the media have to start talking about something else, Kemi Badenoch will not be returning the victims' phone calls. I can guarantee it. Because she doesn't care about them. She's using them. And once again, I'm not blaming the victims. They're desperate. They want somebody to listen to them. They want to pressure the government to do something for them. But Kemi Badenoch doesn't care. She's never cared. I think it was when she was pregnant, she got maternity leave, and she decided not to take maternity pay because her husband was so rich. She didn't need it. She said, I don't need the maternity pay. But she tried to present herself as somebody in tune with the working class, or understanding what ordinary people are going through. It's a shame these people were exploited in the first place. No, the Tories are exploiting them. Yeah. These people, the victims, have been exploited on so many levels. What they need now is respect, and they need justice. And some of the rhetoric, it's really frustrating, because it seems this new inquiry is going to provide them as much justice as possible. Now, there will be parts of Whitehall which will be exempt. Now, I don't know if this is 100% true or not, but it seems some of those exemptions will be for security reasons, which is sort of understandable. But if there are people in Whitehall who are covering things up, if there are people in the police who are covering things up, these people need to be exposed, and they need to be put in prison if they have broken the law. Doesn't matter who they are: politicians, civil servants, members of the police, social services, anyone who was breaking the law, who was covering things up, who were protecting the perpetrators at the expense of the victims, should be in jail. And this is not a left or right thing. This is not an anti-immigration or anti-foreigner or or racist thing, anything. The victims need to be prioritized. And unfortunately, that has not happened for a whole range of reasons. Thanks, Peter, for that super chat. The Tories will be replaced with the Greens. Now, I think the Tories will be replaced with Reform UK. That's where most voters are going now, on the right. Like, if you care, if your primary concern is immigration, you're not going to vote for the Tories. You're going to vote for reform. The sad truth is that the major parties failed the victims. They could have pushed for the victims consistently. They forced them into the arms of reform. Yes. And Nigel Farage will have no qualms in using the victims for his own advantage. He's been doing it for a long time now. Like, he was able to go... Just think about this. This is not exactly connected to this, but it just gives you an idea. Nigel Farage went to a farming protest and was welcomed with open arms. Not by everyone, but by a lot of farmers. This is the same Nigel Farage who told people, vote to leave the European Union and you'll be better off as a farmer. They're not better off, they're worse off. But Nigel Farage was welcome. He was the most popular party. He was the most popular politician at the farming protest. Just let that marinate in your mind for a moment. Like, the Prime Minister couldn't go there. He was intimidated, in a sense. He had to leave. Like, the Prime Minister couldn't go there. And the Prime Minister was telling people, don't vote for Brexit. It would be a bad idea. It would be bad for you. And he was right. But the guy who sold these people a lie went there and was treated like a conquering hero. This is how messed up politics is. Greens need better PR and need a personality. That's why Reform are succeeding, because it's a cult of personality. Yes, the politics today is very personality driven. I think it really started with, maybe we could say it started with Boris Johnson. But before, of course, everything is imported from the US. So it started, of course, with you're hating on my lovely boy Nige. Granny with a bottom. I love the name. Farage is a great dung spreader. Yes, well said, Peter. He's very good at it. He's perfected it over the years. He didn't waste his time attending fishing committee meetings in the European Parliament. Why would you waste your time with that? Perfect spreading dung. It's much more profitable. But it's the cult of personality. We're in this cult of personality. So who are people? Remember, people voted for Trump because they thought, well, this guy will come in, he'll shake things up, he'll drain the swamp, he'll ruffle a few feathers. This is what's needed. The old guard need to be removed and we need this fresh pair of hands. The same with Boris Johnson. People were not voting for the Conservative Party in 2019. They were voting for Boris Johnson. Where Boris Johnson was an MP. Of course, he was the leader of the party, but people were voting for Boris. I'm backing Boris. So it became a cult of personality, of course, and that he ran it to its it ran its course, and he made the most of it. Remember, at the very end, what was Boris Johnson doing on the last days before he was kicked out of Number 10? He was flying around in fighter planes. That's Boris Johnson. He was supposed to be putting forward a plan for the cost of living crisis, but fuck that. I'm still Prime Minister. I'm going to head down to the RAF and I'm going to demand a fly around in a plane. And, they can't refuse me. I'm the Prime Minister. I wouldn't throw milkshakes on Farage. I like milkshakes. It would be terrible if somebody left the milkshake out in the sun for a day, wouldn't it? Nigel's very fresh. Is that lovely aroma? Facts and beer. What was it somebody said, like an ashtray's arse, something like that. It could have been the guys on Broken News said that. Until we get media reform, there won't be a fair representative of political news and reform. Yes, exactly. There needs to be two. There needs to be political reform and there needs to be media reform. If you didn't know the makeup of Parliament, who would you think was the biggest party? Probably the Labour Party because they're in power. Then you'd probably think, okay, who's the next biggest party? Well, obviously Reform, because Richard Tice, Nigel Farage are on TV all the time. So obviously, smells like a pub. Pubs don't smell bad, depending on the pub. You would imagine Reform are the biggest party in opposition. But of course they don't. They're not the biggest party. They're nowhere near the biggest party. They're nowhere near the second biggest party. The Liberal Democrats have, 72 MPs or 70-something MPs. I would love to see some people defect to the Green Party. There are a lot of independent MPs who are closer to the Green Party than they are maybe to the Labour Party. Why don't they defect to the Green Party and then give the Green Party a stronger position? Because if the argument is, well, Reform don't have that many MPs, but they are the official opposition, or they have, they need to have this, they're doing really well in the polls. Well, if a number of MPs defected to the Green Party, they would actually have more clout in Parliament. And then they would have to be platformed more. That's the assumption, but media reform needs to take place. You can't have a situation where Richard Tice is on TV all the time. Zia Youssef, who isn't even an MP, spends more time on TV than a member of the Green Party who's a frigging MP or a councillor or somebody who's actually elected. How is it possible that Zia Youssef is on TV more than an elected official? Can someone explain that to me? Brad, thank you so much for that super chat. Politics in the UK needs shaking up harder than the shaking Boris Johnson generation. Oh, God. I need to do a live stream with Professor Tim and Brad. The three of us can talk about Boris Johnson. It would be X-rated, unfortunately. It would be after the watershed. For anyone who's not familiar with the watershed, go Google it. Thanks, Brad. I think a wonderful image. I'm going to have some sort of PTSD after all these. No offense to anyone with PTSD. Farage wants the 70s back. He's nostalgic for the days you could watch Love Thy Neighbours. Oh, those were the days. Max, we're after the watershed now. That's good. I feel a bit nauseated now. I'm sorry. It's Brad's fault. It's not my fault. I just run the thing. Okay, let's move on to our next story. I wanted to cover this because I think it's really important. Two stories here which are actually connected. Hopefully I won't bore you with this, but I find it fascinating. This is an economist talking about...
I think the time to acquire expertise...
Whoops, bring it up. Let me bring up the part I wanted to show you. Of course, it's about a UBI. Here we go.
Whatever that may be, and however we exactly structure it, to make sure that when AI takes off, when we reach this threshold where AI systems become better than humans at most cognitive tasks, and when our economy is going to be able to suddenly produce so much more that humans can also share in some of those gains, and that it doesn't immiserate the masses.
We heard Sam Altman make the case for that on Harvard's campus last May. Do you think that is a radical idea? Is it something that will increasingly become in vogue with governments around the world?
It's absolutely a radical idea. And I think right now, at this very moment, we don't need or want something like a universal basic income because it's hugely expensive and it would provide disincentives to work for a lot of people, even though our economy really relies on labor and we want people who are able to contribute to the economy. But if AI takes off and if we do reach AGI, that in itself would be an absolutely radical development on the economic front. And that kind of radical development would also require a radical response.
Can you explain?
So what he's talking about here, of course, is a universal basic income, that we would need to have a universal basic income because AI is going to take over a lot of jobs. Now, what's happening at the moment with AI is a lot of jobs are not many jobs are being replaced yet, but we're going to see this over the next 2 years probably. We're going to see AI agents. So these agents, at the moment, if you want to use, most people are using like ChatGPT or Gemini or some other AI tool to help them with their work. So you want to do some research into something, you open the tab and you open a browser and you go on and you do some research with ChatGPT, or you ask it to do a report for you. So it's like an assistant at the moment. But the next stage will be agents, and these agents, what they're going to do is you're going to say, okay, go and do this work for me. So it will actually open a web page, it will do some research, it will compile a report, it will send this report to different people, a bit like an employee. Now, we're going to have to wait and see how good these systems are, but as we progress, these systems are going to get better. And what you're going to have is, instead of having a team of 5 people, you're going to have 1 person and 4 assistants, 4 agents doing the work. And what's going to happen is you're going to have companies who are going to be able to maximize their savings this way, because instead of having 5 employees, they'll have 1. They may pay that employee a bit more, but they're going to make huge savings. They're not going to be paying wages, first of all. They're not going to be paying for accommodation, for office space, all of these things for these 5 people. They won't have to pay health insurance. They won't have to pay national insurance. They won't have to pay all these things. So they're going to make massive savings. And this is going to result in companies making a huge amount of money. Now, obviously, somebody's going to have to buy their products, but we'll get to that in a moment. So they're going to make huge savings. They're going to maximize their profits. So this is where the UBI comes in. We have to make sure that people are able to buy these products if you're a capitalist, but also as a normal person, we want people to be able to survive. They need to be able to pay their rent, buy food, buy stuff if you want. So people need to be supported in some way. So a universal basic income would be funded by taxing the companies more. So the companies are making huge profits. If we increase the taxes on their profits, then we're able to fund the UBI. So the companies make money by laying people off. They save huge amounts of money by laying people off. They see their profits rise. And in order to fund the UBI, we tax the companies more. So we take from the companies and we give to people. And then they buy the services, or they buy the products produced by the companies who are no longer using people to produce those products and services, but AI. That's the idea. Whether it'll actually come to fruition is another thing, because governments at the moment, what are they doing? They're talking about moving people off benefits and into jobs. The mentality is still 20th century. We're still stuck in this, don't worry, there will be jobs for people in the future. No, it's not like in the 20th century where, okay, factories would, factory workers were replaced by robots, but those workers would move into another sector, the service sector, for example, or they would work in tech support, or they would work in some other industry. Those industries are being taken over by AI at the moment. So AI is taking those jobs as well. So you don't need people as much as before. And we're not creating jobs to the same extent where you can move people from one employment to another. Just put Brad's comment into AI. Thanks, Peter. Well said. AI is kind of bossy. I don't like it. It creeps me out. It is. There's a sort of sycophancy with different AI tools. For example, if you ask them a question, be like, "You're so cool," stuff like that. It's like, I don't like that. Or yeah, you're right, and it has to become more natural, more critical in some ways, because it will work better, because people need to be given proper information, not just constantly told, yeah, you're right, because then it'll end up creating a lot of problems. Britain hasn't got the infrastructure to make AI happen anytime soon. Countries that don't invest in the infrastructure are going to fall behind, and it's going to really damage them. We need to be on the cutting edge of this. If we're not, we're going to be left behind by the United States and China, and guarantee it. I'm concerned in Europe, where I'm a huge fan of regulations. I'm a huge fan of red tape, things like this, not for a negative reason, but they're there to protect consumers, to protect the public, to protect workers, to protect the environment, all of these things. And these things are important, but there is a risk that we will be left behind by China and the United States when it comes to AI, where the regulations are slowing everything down and we're left behind, and we don't want to be left behind, because there is, I don't know if it's true or not, but there is a video, I don't have it here in front of me, but I do recommend doing some research into AI 2027. I know it sounds a bit tinfoil hatty, but we're going to see systems which are much better than people, are able to do jobs much faster than people. And we're going to get to a stage where you have a country of experts processing information much faster than anything we have today. And whoever's in charge of that is going to run the world. So we would want to have the AI aligned with us, to align with our goals, but also we don't want one individual or a small bunch of individuals running everything, because then we're in serious trouble, as we've seen so far when it comes to like the media or when it comes to politics. The one on Discord keeps calling Max darling. Yes, we have an AI bot on Discord as well to help answer questions. It's pretty good, but it keeps calling me darling for some reason. I think it's the programmers. Tried ChatGPT. I found I have to prompt it like 20 times to get it to write exactly what's in my head. You get different approaches. This is one of the things when it came to the critical thing I had towards Sky News. Sky News approached it perhaps in the wrong way. They're like, oh, it's not working right. The way you have to approach the ChatGPT is you have to tell it what you want it to do. And that may sound very simple, but for example, if you wanted to write a poem, tell it, I want you to write a poem like a poet. I want you to imagine you're a poet and then do this. The same as if you wanted to be a lawyer. Say, you're now a lawyer, write me a letter about this. Because then it automatically switches into that mode. If you just say, write a letter about this, or I have this problem, write me a letter, it doesn't know what it's supposed to do. So if you prompt it, it's all about prompting. The prompting is the way to get good results. So if you tell it, look, I want you to be a professor. I want you to be a lawyer. I want you to be a scientist. Now write me a report. And then it gets into the mindset of a scientist or a lawyer, and then it'll produce a better result. AI's ability to solve Brexit is 500 years old. Well said, Brad. Be more bossy. It's seen the Mankini pics, I think. Weird bot that is. Yes. It said, I can't do it, Dave. The poem means nothing through when it's done by an AI. How could it? No, I was doing it in jest when it came to poetry. But no, when it comes to things like you wanted to write a letter, a lawyer's letter, a solicitor's letter, say, you're now a solicitor, write a letter about this problem. And it will do a better job than you just asking it. Write a letter about this problem. And you say, you describe the problem. It has to know what it's supposed to do, the role it has to play. So if you help it with that, you get a better result. I'm saying nothing about the calendar. Honestly, just write the letter. That will produce a better result. Not everyone's very good at writing letters. I know, Max, I was just playing devil's advocate. No problem at all. We need somebody to play devil's advocate. So just on that, I want to show you this. So when it comes to a UBI, Universal Basic Income, we need to have support for people, because if jobs are disappearing, and jobs will disappear very quickly, because a company, if they're able to use these agents, which are like employees, and I think what we're going to see is we're going to see the software companies offering virtual employees or digital employees, digital workers, saying, okay, you pay us £300 a month or $300 a month, and you can have this type of employee. Pay $3,000 a month, and you can have this type of employee. And companies will do that. They will hire these agents if they can work well. They will save a huge amount of money. Now, there will be obviously data issues, security issues, but a lot of jobs, I think, will be outsourced to the AI, or they'll have some sort of tool that will be loaded into their systems, which will keep it all the information secret within the company, so it will not be shared with the provider. But we're going to see a lot of jobs lost, and unfortunately, governments are asleep at the wheel. Governments are still talking about moving people off benefits and into jobs. What jobs? It's going to become more and more difficult to find a job, and there's another issue here, is that the power people have to demand a higher wage or a higher salary or better working conditions is going to disappear. This is the worst thing about it. We will become obsolete as humans because the system will be constantly getting better. It will be like somebody doing 10 years of training in a day. How do you compete with something like that? You can't compete. Will UBI be more than my benefits? At the moment, I get £2,000 a month. I think the UBI will replace benefits. So it will replace a lot of, it will replace the pension, it will replace benefits, it will replace a lot of the social safety net. I don't know how much it would be. That would depend on the government, but it would have to be a basic. So it would have to cover most people's cost of living. Because if it's too low, then it's not going to work. It's not going to be too high because it will eventually balance out. But it has to be linked to inflation as well. So there's no point saying it's going to be £1,000 a month and it's going to be fixed forever. No, it has to rise with inflation. But it will have to be brought in, and it will have to be brought in very soon. Otherwise, we're going to have a situation where people don't have jobs, people have no means to live, and it won't be good for capitalism either, because if you have nobody buying your products, then you're going to go out of business, no matter how efficient you are. So I just wanted to cover this final thing before we finish, guys, because it's related to the AI. And I think this is a topic that's not getting a lot of traction, but it should be. Did ChatGPT get the spending... Oh, no thanks. Spending review right? Treasury Minister gives his verdict.
Last week we got AI, ChatGPT, to try and work out what it thought the spending review was going to look like. Look at this. Here it is. And it had the big winners being defence and health, bit for transport, bit for housing, losers, Home Office, Justice, education overall, and the Foreign Office. Now, I've brought somebody to mark its homework, the person who actually did the spending review.
Okay, this is the big problem with a lot of this is it's garbage in, garbage out. If you're not familiar with garbage in, garbage out, if you give it bad data, it's going to the result will be bad data. And I think this is part of the problem with Sky News. Sorry.
Which looks like this. Let's bring up Darren Jones's work. Darren is the Chief Secretary to the Treasury. This is what it looked like overall. Some similarities, defence out in top, health doing quite well, losses there for the Foreign Office. What do you make of AI's efforts if we just take your version and put our version on top?
Well, that's pretty good. I could be out of a job next time in 2027, which, to be honest, it's not a bad idea, given the process I've just had to go through. But look, I think here you've identified defence spending. Obviously, we've had to put more money into that. We've been very clear about it. Health, a huge budget, as you would expect. Transport, we're excluding HS2 here, which is why I think your grey bar is a bit different, because this is now called a mega project, and so it gets treated differently in terms of the line items. Housing, I don't know what's going on there, that's a bit weird. Home Office, broadly right, but we put extra money into the Border Security Command. Justice, because historically Justice always had a raw deal, but because of the prison crisis that we inherited from the Conservatives, we've had to put a huge amount of extra money in to help with prisons and probation. Net zero, again, this is excluding Sizewell C, another mega project, which is why the AI is probably a little bit off there in terms of its assumptions.
The big one that I don't think AI got right was education. In the end, there's a positive number for education. It's not huge, 0.4% increase in the school's budget annually in real terms, but nevertheless a plus in front of the education budget.
Yeah, which was an active decision by the government to put that money into education. And this will be broken up a bit between core schools and colleges and further education. With the free school meals that we've announced. But we've essentially put more of the pie into education than maybe the assumption would have been made based on previous spending.
Interested that business came out quite well, the business department.
Yeah.
Why is that?
It's probably broadly because of things like our intervention in the steel sector. We've had to intervene to support jobs and some key sectors through the kind of tariff changes and things that we wouldn't have had to do in the past. So the assumption would have been a bit wrong, but obviously we're putting more money into supporting British industry and British jobs.
Okay, give the effort of ChatGPT a score out of 10.
Okay, why didn't you talk about the last one at the bottom? You didn't cover the last one at the bottom. Okay, I was hoping that he'd mention something about that, but they didn't. Look, once again, it's garbage in, garbage out. So if you can say, well, ChatGPT didn't do a very good job. Yeah, but if you don't give it the right information, it's not going to work. Even if you have Darren Potter running it, he's taller than the graph. Yes, he should run as president of the United States because, according to most data, the taller person wins the election. So he should run against Trump. He looks like he's taller than Trump. The Homer principle. As the world is becoming a dystopia, why would the next generation bring children into a world? It's something I mentioned. I think I mentioned it in a short, but I think what's going to happen is people are going to have fewer children because they don't have to have them. Like if you look at the past, why did people have so many children? Because many didn't survive childbirth into their first year, or they didn't survive into their fifth year. Many people had farms and they needed people to work on their farms, and children were a very cheap form of labor. Many people had businesses and they wanted a lot of kids to work in their businesses, but most people now are having maybe one child or two or none at all. And a lot of people don't feel the need to have them. And I think this is going to be, we're seeing two things. We're seeing the population get older. We're seeing the population decline. And we're seeing the rise of AI, and robotics, which is going to take a lot of jobs. So what are people going to do in the future? Because remember a few years ago, it was code. Code is the wave of the future. Well, that didn't last very long because you can now do vibe coding, which is AI will write the code for you. Now, it's not perfect. It still has a lot of flaws, but you're able to, an AI will create a website for you. So you don't really need a website designer. AI can create images for you. So you don't need a photographer or an artist. I'm not saying we shouldn't have them. I would prefer to use an artist. I would prefer to use a website designer. But AI will do a lot of those jobs, and it's just going to increase. They will replace YouTubers as well, I imagine, unfortunately. But as we get close, we need to have a fallback. We need to have an alternative. And I think what we're going to see, and maybe I'm being a bit romantic about this, I think what we're going to see, hopefully, and this is once again my romantic hat on, I think we're going to see a greater sense of community where people will come together. They won't have to work because they'll have a UBI, but they'll be able to spend time together doing anything, like telling stories or making things together. Or I had this idea. Once again, I'm a sort of old romantic. I had this idea, people coming together and cooking, showing each other how to cook a dish or something like that, talking about things, telling stories, having fun together, so that the AI is doing all the work and taking over the world, and we humans are like sitting around like basically like house cats. Sleeping, eating, relaxing, rolling around a bit, fighting with our neighbors, coughing up fur balls and stuff like that, and just having a good life. But maybe it will be more dystopian than that. Brad, thanks so much for that super chat. As we get AI, Jacob Rees-Mogg gets his first calculator. It's a wind-up one, right? He's getting a computer, a portable computer installed. It fits into 2 rooms. Guys, so I want to say thank you so much to everyone come on tonight. Thank you so much for your super chats. Thank you so much to the moderators for doing a wonderful job as always. Before we finish, we have our one for the road, so I hope you enjoy this. It's a good one. And I will see you on Friday, same bad time, same bad channel. So stay safe. But before we go, enjoy this.
We're going to have a big, beautiful parade.
military parade?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
We're going to
And
celebrate our military. We have the greatest military in the world.
What's the price tag? Do you know?
Peanuts compared to the value of doing it.
We can't afford not to do it. Why don't you believe in me? If you hadn't spent so much on dolls and pencils, we wouldn't even talking about this. And see. But this is the brilliance of Trump. In the same interview where he says to Americans, sorry about your Christmas, suck it up, he talks about a $90 million parade that just so happens to fall on his birthday and is totally worth it.
We have the greatest missiles in the world. We have the greatest submarines in the world. We have the greatest army tanks in the world. We have the greatest weapons in the world. And we're going to celebrate it.
I don't know, Mr. President, if you know how submarines work. But dragging them down Pennsylvania Avenue will most likely void the warranty.
It's true. It will void the warranty. Before we finish, we have a couple of super chats. Thanks so much, Brad, once again. BJ will have time to do full time. Boris Johnson will... Thanks, Brad. Oh my goodness, he'll be repopulating the planet with Boris Johnson's. And Peter, thanks so much, Peter, as well. You can tell stories about a young man called Skywalker. Yes, I will indeed. So guys, have a great week. I'll see you on Friday, same bad time, same bad channel. Stay safe, take care, and good night.